The impact of climate change is one of the most profound, far-reaching, and urgent challenges humanity has ever faced, touching every part of the globe and every aspect of life on Earth. It is not a distant threat confined to future generations or faraway places. It is a present and accelerating crisis, reshaping ecosystems, altering weather patterns, displacing communities, threatening economies, and endangering the delicate balance that sustains life on this planet. At the heart of this transformation is the steady increase in greenhouse gas emissions, primarily carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, released through human activities such as burning fossil fuels, industrial processes, large-scale agriculture, and deforestation. These gases trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere, creating what is commonly referred to as the greenhouse effect, which in turn drives global warming and disrupts the climate system. Over the past century, average global temperatures have risen significantly, and the pace of warming is accelerating, with the last decade being the hottest on record. But climate change is not just about numbers on a thermometer. It is about a shift in the natural rhythms of the Earth that affect everything from the food we eat to the air we breathe. The consequences of climate change manifest in numerous and interconnected ways, starting with more frequent and intense extreme weather events. Heat waves, droughts, floods, hurricanes, and wildfires are becoming more common and more destructive, costing billions of dollars in damages each year and taking countless lives. In 2023 alone, extreme weather events displaced millions of entire communities are being uprooted, livelihoods destroyed, and basic necessities like clean water and food are becoming harder to access in climate-stressed regions. For instance, prolonged droughts in East Africa have led to crop failures, food shortages, and famine-like conditions affecting millions. Simultaneously, rising sea levels driven by melting glaciers and polar ice caps threaten to submerge low-lying islands and coastal cities, including major urban centers like Jakarta, Miami, and Dhaka. As sea levels rise, saltwater intrusion into freshwater supplies, increased coastal erosion, and stronger storm surges pose enormous challenges for infrastructure, agriculture, and human habitation. Climate change also poses a direct threat to biodiversity and ecosystems. As temperatures rise and precipitation patterns shift, many plant and animal species are struggling to adapt or migrate to more favorable environments. Forests are being devastated by pests and diseases that thrive in warmer temperatures, while marine ecosystems are suffering from warming waters and ocean acidification caused by the absorption of excess carbon dioxide. Coral reefs, which support about a quarter of all marine species and protect coastlines from erosion, are experiencing massive bleaching events, with some reefs now beyond recovery. The loss of biodiversity is not just an environmental concern, it is a human one. Healthy ecosystems provide vital services like pollination, water purification, climate regulation, and disease control. Their collapse could undermine the very foundations of human civilization. In addition to environmental and ecological impacts, climate change has profound implications for human health. Increased temperatures contribute to the spread of vector-borne diseases such as malaria, dengue fever, and Zika virus, as warmer climates allow mosquitoes and other vectors to thrive in previously inhospitable regions. Air pollution, exacerbated by the burning of fossil fuels, worsens respiratory conditions like asthma and chronic bronchitis, especially among children and the elderly. Waterborne diseases are on the rise as floods contaminate water supplies, while food insecurity and malnutrition grow due to the disruption of agricultural cycles. Mental health is another overlooked consequence, with climate-related disasters triggering trauma, anxiety, and depression, especially in vulnerable populations repeatedly exposed to environmental hazards. Economically, the impact of climate change is staggering and growing. Damage to infrastructure from extreme weather events, loss of agricultural productivity, strain on public health systems, and the costs of mitigation and adaptation are placing enormous pressure on national budgets and global markets. Entire industries are being disrupted, from insurance and tourism to fisheries and real estate. For example, rising temperatures are shortening ski seasons and endangering winter sports economies, while increasing wildfire risks are making some regions uninsurable. The World Bank estimates that climate change could push an additional 100 million people into poverty by 2030 if urgent action is not taken. The most vulnerable populations, those who have contributed the least to global emissions, are often the hardest hit, exacerbating global inequalities and threatening social cohesion. Climate change is also a powerful threat multiplier, intensifying existing tensions over resources such as water, land, and food, and contributing to conflicts and forced migration. In regions already facing political instability, such as the Sahel in Africa or parts of the Middle East, climate stress can ignite violence and displacement. Rising temperatures and changing rainfall patterns reduce crop yields, increase food prices, and spark competition over dwindling resources. The resulting migration, whether internal or across borders, places additional strain on receiving communities and has the potential to fuel xenophobia, nationalism, and social unrest. Climate security is increasingly being recognized as a national security issue, prompting military and intelligence agencies around the world to incorporate climate risk into their strategic planning. Despite the overwhelming evidence of the dangers posed by climate change, global responses have often been slow, fragmented, and inadequate. Political inertia, vested interests, misinformation campaigns, and short-term economic thinking have hindered the transition to a sustainable and resilient future. However, momentum is growing. The 2015 Paris Agreement marked a turning point, with nearly every country committing to reduce emissions and limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, preferably 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. Achieving these targets requires rapid, far-reaching transformations in energy, transport, agriculture, and urban development. Renewable energy technologies such as solar, wind, and hydroelectric power are becoming more affordable and accessible, providing a pathway to phase out fossil fuels. Energy efficiency, sustainable building practices, and circular economies are gaining traction as essential components of climate solutions. Equally important is adaptation, preparing for the unavoidable impacts that are already unfolding. Cities are investing in green infrastructure, early warning systems, and resilient housing. Coastal communities are constructing seawalls, restoring mangroves, and adopting nature-based solutions to reduce flood risks. Farmers are embracing climate-smart agriculture, using drought-resistant seeds, efficient irrigation, and soil conservation techniques. Indigenous knowledge and traditional ecological practices are being increasingly recognized for their value in managing natural resources sustainably. International cooperation, financing, and technology transfer are essential to ensure that all countries, especially those in the global south, have the tools and resources to adapt to a changing climate. The role of individuals, communities, and grassroots movements cannot be understated. Youth activists, environmental organizations, scientists, and concerned citizens are raising awareness, demanding accountability, and pushing for change at all levels of society. Consumer choices, from diet and travel to energy use and waste, also have a significant impact, signaling to businesses and policymakers that sustainability matters. Education and public engagement are critical for building the political will needed to drive systemic change. Ultimately, addressing the impact of climate change requires a fundamental shift in how we relate to the planet and to one another. It calls for empathy, courage, innovation, and solidarity across borders and generations. Climate change is not just an environmental issue. It is a humanitarian, economic, and moral crisis that challenges us to rethink progress, development, and our collective responsibility. The path forward will not be easy, but it is still possible to avert the worst outcomes if we act decisively and together. Every tenth of a degree matters, every choice counts, and every voice has the power to shape a more sustainable, equitable, and livable future. The impact of climate change is real, urgent, and immense, but so too is the opportunity to build a world that is cleaner, healthier, and more just for all.